The average person has 4,000 weeks in their lifetime, and if you're above 35, you've probably already used up half of them. Now, I'm not telling this to scare you, but after helping hundreds of people build their retirement plans, I've noticed that most people are working longer than they need to without realising. And there are 8 clear signs you could quit your job way earlier than you think. So in this video, I'll show you what the 8 signs are and one early retirement option that nobody ever seems to really consider. But before we jump in, there's something crucial you need to understand. Most people consider retirement like a piggy bank where you put your money away for a rainy day. Beautifully painted by my daughter. She was very quick to tell me she knows how much is in here and she expects the right amount back when I'm done borrowing it. She's only 6. But anyway, some people get so focused on saving money that they put lifestyle, friends and family aside and end up retiring way too late because they haven't hit that magic figure. But rather of thinking of it like a piggy bank, think of retirement like a scale. On one side, you have money. And on the other side, you have lifestyle. And as you will see throughout this video, the aim isn't to make as much money as possible. It's to make the scales balance evenly. Sign number 1. If you've read this, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, great book by the way, you might know this famous story about 2 guys. One was a Harvard grad working as an executive at Merrill Lynch earning megabucks. The other was a janitor earning minimum wage. As you might expect, the exec made a load of money during his career, but due to his lavish lifestyle, ended up filing for bankruptcy. Meanwhile, the janitor lived a simple life, invested sensibly, and died with $8 million in the bank. Now, I'm not suggesting you should all become janitors, but here's what we can take away from this. Making money is one thing, but to retire early and comfortably, you need to understand exactly where that money goes. Because if you already live below your means and have built a big nest egg, you might already be closer to retirement than you think. So if you don't know your numbers, that's your first step. I recommend all my clients analyse their spending, not only so they can see what their lifestyle costs, so we can see how close they are to being able to retire, but also so they can see if where they are spending their money is actually aligned to their priorities and how they'd like to spend it. Sign number 2. Most people obsess over investments and pension pots, but they overlook something really basic. And it's actually the first thing I check when someone asks me if they're ready to retire early, because it tells me more about your retirement than any investment return. Being completely mortgage-free. Think about it. Your house payment is probably your biggest monthly expense. When that's gone, your cost of living drops dramatically. And when your expenses drop, the amount you need saved for retirement does too. So, if your mortgage is already paid off, that's a huge sign you might be ready to retire earlier than you think. However, if there's 15 years left on your mortgage and you want to retire in 10 years' time, that might cause you an issue. So make sure to check your mortgage payments and if they are aligned with your retirement plans. Sign number 3. I have a question for you. At what age are you able to legally access your pension? A, 43, B, 55, C, 65, or D, 67? When I ask this question, 90% of people answer C or D, which is one of the biggest myths in retirement planning. Because if you've structured your investments the right way, you can tap into your retirement funds from as early as 55, soon to be 57, even earlier if you use wrappers like a stocks and shares ISA. So, if you are financially stable and you have already got access to your retirement funds, then that's another sign you could retire earlier than you think. I personally recommend to my clients to use both pensions and ISA accounts to build their retirement wealth, so they've got maximum flexibility and tax planning opportunities to retire on their own terms. Sign number 4. Last year, I met with a client called Bertie. Bertie had everything we just talked about. He was mortgage-free, had a pretty frugal lifestyle, and he could already access his pension funds. There was just one problem. All of his investments were in individual company shares based on stock tips he'd read online. And when these took a big hit just at the point he wanted to retire, well, put it this way, Bertie was not only losing a lot of sleep, his retirement date was slowly getting pushed further and further away from him. As I mentioned before, the people who manage to retire early aren't necessarily the ones with the most money. If you have multiple streams of income, as well as a diversified and well-structured set of investment portfolios in tax-efficient accounts like pensions and ISAs, for me, that's a big sign that you could retire early. When I say multiple streams of income, I'm talking about things like property rental income, a defined benefit pension kicking in further down the line to take some of the strain, a side hustle business you can carry on with. Because when your money is working for you in different ways, early retirement becomes both possible and sustainable, and you can sleep at night. So if you're following along and your mortgage is paid off, you know exactly what you spend each month, you can access your retirement savings, you have multiple sources of income coming your way, and your investments are well diversified, then financially you might be ready to retire. But as I mentioned, money is only half of the equation. You can have all the money in the world, but end up extremely miserable in retirement if you aren't in the right headspace for it. Let's imagine you were nodding your head to all of these financial signs and you do have enough saved. How can you tell if you personally are ready to retire? Well, for this section, I'm going to ask you a series of questions to see if you are ready to retire. And if you are going through the video unsure of the answers, you can click on the link in the description to apply for a free call with me where I will help you find some of those answers and see if you are ready to retire or not. Sign number 5. Firstly, are you in good health? Are you still active? Do you still have loads of things on your bucket list? Are there places you haven't visited yet you're desperate to see? Family members that live abroad that you haven't seen for years and always promise yourself you'd get there one day? If you answered yes to all of these questions, that's a sign you should consider retiring. Now, it might sound like I'm oversimplifying things here, but let me try and put this into perspective. The average person retires at 65. Their health starts declining at 70, and they spend their last decade managing doctor's appointments instead of managing their bucket list. But flip that timeline around, retire at 45 or 50, and you've got 20 years of peak physical health and energy to actually travel the world, time to start that business you've dreamed about, and the ability to be active with your kids or grandkids. So don't ignore this sign, because unlike money, your energy and health aren't resources you can earn back once they're gone. Sign number 6. How do you feel about your job? A, do you love it? B, is it okay? Or C, you loathe every minute of it and the only thing you can think about is getting back at 5:01 sharp. According to YouGov polls, a good portion of you are sitting in the B and C categories. But time and time again, I meet people who insist on sticking it out at their job because they haven't saved that magic number we talked about earlier. Now, I'm not suggesting you should retire just because you've had a bad day or a bad week. However, if you've felt like this for more than, say, a year, that feeling doesn't go away after holidays or breaks, and you're dreading work even after changing roles or teams, it's probably a sign that it's time to retire. Or at the very least have a look at the possibility of making some big changes. However, this only works if you can also tick sign number 7 off the list. Do you, A, like the idea of retirement but not 100% sure what to do? Golf maybe sounds good. You know you want to take a holiday but you don't know where. You love your job but just have the occasional bad day. Or do you, B, catch yourself constantly planning your what-if life, have a concrete plan of exactly what to do, where to go, and know exactly how you will keep busy? If you find yourself in category A, then here's a word of warning. A few years back, a client of mine retired with no real purpose, just not much planned. Just wanted to get out of the work rat race. I subsequently watched him get very old very quickly and then sadly not very well. It was as if as soon as he'd retired, he'd lost all sense of who he was and why he was here and whittled down the days doing not a lot, got very depressed and almost aged overnight. In other words, even if you have enough to retire, you need something to retire for. However, if you know all of the questions in category B and you have a very good idea of the passion project you want to start, the places you want to travel, or that scratch golf handicap staring you in the face, then that is another strong sign you're ready to retire early. And that brings us nicely to sign number 8. Think about what you're doing right now. Why are you watching this video? Because God knows it isn't just to stare at my face for radio. You're watching a video about early retirement. You might have clicked on this video consciously because you know you are ready to retire. Or you might be on the fence, thinking about whether it's the right choice or not. But you are asking yourself the question, and I think that says something important. Maybe that's a sign that you're readier than you thought, and there is something I want to tell you about that might make the leap slightly easier. There's a massive misconception about early retirement. It's that it has to be this cliff-edge decision. You are either all in or all out, but that couldn't be further from the truth. If you said yes to all of these questions, it's probably a sign that both your finances and your personal life are in alignment. However, you don't need to quit your job tomorrow and never work again. In fact, there's a sweet spot between working full-time and full-time retirement called semi-retirement that so many people seem to overlook. Could you drop to 2 or 3 days a week? Could you only take on projects that you actually care about? Or could you start working half days? The beauty of this approach is that you don't suddenly lose 100% of your income too, which might help your peace of mind as you venture into this new exciting chapter of your life and start to get an idea of what retired life actually looks like. Because who knows? You might start working 3 days a week, start enjoying your job again, and realise that actually playing golf 5 times a week is more boring than you thought. Having a balanced view on retirement is important, but none of that matters if the fundamental calculations that underpin your retirement are off. So check out this video next where I explain exactly how much money you need to retire in 2025. Or, if you are really stuck, as I said, you can apply for one of the free calls with me in the description.